the awareness continues into your second year of recovery, continuous sobriety, your second year of abstinence. It won't be like the first year. You will not think the same way you think now when you get to year 2, should you be blessed with that and choose that path for yourself. When you come to year 3, you will not be thinking the way you were in year 2. This is an evolutionary process. And the negativity and the self-doubt and the procrastination and the resentment, those are the 4 aggravations. Those things change shape. They have a different quality to them. I have a different relationship with them. It's not that I never have a negative thought. It's not that I don't procrastinate. It's not that I don't have temporary, very minor resentments that come up in my life. It's that I'm in the practice of moving through them and returning myself to presence. That's the benefit of staying in the practice of recovery. We have one radiant soul remaining here with an inquiry, and that is Stu.
Hi, Tommy. It's great to be here. This has been really deep and powerful, so thank you. My question may have been addressed already, so I'm not sure if I should ask a different one, but I'm just going to go forward. I'm so excited to be here. Tomorrow will be 1 year that I'm sober.
Come on, man. Come on. 1 year tomorrow? Congratulations.
And I've smoked obsessively for over 30 years, and this will be the longest that I've ever gone. And it's thanks to finally getting honest with myself, and in a large part, the work of your work and Recovery 2.0. I'm so grateful.
Thank you for that. And I have to ask a few questions. First of all, congratulations. Incredible. Smoked, when you say smoked, cannabis or nicotine or both?
Cannabis.
Okay.
One choice, in terms of substance, one choice. Yeah.
30 years of smoking cannabis, and you're now 1 year sober from it. We're going to need to hear about how you did that. So we're going to need to hear about that.
Okay. I'll share about it.
Yeah. It's so important that people hear. I mean, so I can come on the show and say, well, I'm 33 years sober. And some people, that's not really relatable for a lot of folks. For you, at 1 year, this is huge. And you can share in a minute or later or whenever you want to about that, but I need to know, and I want people to hear how you did it. And also we're here to field your questions. So however you want to go about that.
Thank you. I think speaking about that first and then answering my question might be a nice way to go.
Beautiful.
What a surprise it's been that when you work consistently with a sponsor and work the steps, it gets, what a surprise.
Amazing.
I attended my first 12-step meeting in the year 2001. I was living in Buffalo, New York. I attended an AA meeting, and I shared that I can't stop smoking pot. And I know that this is, quote, non-addicting, although we now know differently. But it's ruining my life and I can't stop. And I shared, and I just opened up my heart and probably barfed out a lot of information. One person in that meeting took me aside when it was done, and he said, and pardon, I'm going to use a little French. He said, "Hey man, you got to take that shit to another meeting." And this was, he had his own opinions about things, but it was really tough. It took me about another 8 years before I even thought about getting clean again.
Wow.
I just said, okay, I'll just go back to what I was living. And
wow.
It was very difficult for me to tell the truth about myself for a long time, because on the surface, things seemed really, really good. I was a successful musician. I was doing things that I had heard messages growing up that I wouldn't be able to do, and with an attitude of "I'll show you," I did it. So on the surface, things seem going very well, but I was definitely living a double life.
Mm.
I was very grateful that early on yoga found me. I
Mm.
had on yoga and meditation, but practicing asana, pranayama, and meditation in the morning and being baked by 3 in the afternoon is, it's a bit like trying to run a marathon with a ball and chain on your ankle.
I know this story. That's an incredible thing you just said. And I just want to point out two things so far in this tale. Number one, when you went to that first meeting and you declared, I think I'm having a problem with this and I need to change in some way, that was 23 years ago. So that's really important for people to hear and understand that the thought and the desire to change came long before the actual thing. The other thing I want people to hear here is that human being that delivered the message to you at that meeting, you need to find another place to bring that shit, delivered one of the most inconsiderate, unconscious statements. And it ultimately, of course, you have to take responsibility for the unfolding of your life, but people can influence us. And that was a very unfortunate message that you received that day. I'm so sorry. And that's a big part of the reason why recovery needs to move along in ways that hopefully we're embodying in Recovery 2.0 and other programs too, that recognize that you were welcome there, but somebody made you feel unwelcome and confused the situation. And my God, what an awful thing. Anyway, I'm glad you're here now. What happened a year ago?
Sure. If I may just add to that,
Of course.
I hold no grudge against that person or that view. I actually ended up going back to that very same meeting and finding a sponsor. And I understand that, we all have our conditioning and our prejudgments about things. And that was the message I received. So I did some more research. 1 year ago, I finally, I never liked to drink. I never really liked to do other drugs. I had a few psychedelic experiences, but marijuana, even though for decades I knew it was not serving me, it never gave me a feeling like it did that day, where it was like I came out of a dream and suddenly I'm in my car and I'm smoking a joint and I didn't know how I got there. I mean, honestly, I don't even remember how I got there. It was as if I walked into a dispensary, got something. And the effects, even though I knew it didn't serve me for years, it would still do something. Like it might just numb me a little bit, make the music sound a little bit groovier for a minute. But this day, I really believe that God's spirit just said, I'm kicking you out. And it filled me with a sense of paranoia and dread. My hands were shaking. I had to pull over the car, throw it out the window, put it in park and just walk for a little while, hug a tree. I hadn't experienced that, like, okay, it's really time, man. It's time. So I had been attending some universal meetings through R2O online. And I just, I think it was the next day, I showed up at a meeting and said, I'm looking for a sponsor. Can somebody please help me? And I called up other friends I have in recovery, but it was a few weeks later that I was connected with a wonderful sponsor and a very experienced meditator and coach through R2O, and I've been working with him ever since. And
would that be Tom?
Yes, it is.
Okay. How lucky you are to find someone like that in Recovery 2.0. Wow. He's an amazing human being. Wow.
Yes, indeed. Yes, he is.
Wow.
And our sessions have been good. So I'm working through the steps, and I have found that the obsession to use and to hide and in other ways procrastinate from what I truly want to do with my life, I'm putting that energy into sadhana, into musical practice, into being a more present father. Yeah, so the work is continuing. 1 year, it's not like it doesn't mean anything to me. It does, but I also feel like it's really about today and what I'm doing today. That's what I need to focus on.
Incredible, Stu. I'm so delighted to hear your story. Thank you. I know it's not why you came here today, but it's such an important story to hear in the circle. And if you don't mind, we'd love to share it with others who need to hear it.
Thank you so much. I'd
Yes.
be all right with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's wonderful to have enough clarity to now see what is next. And for me, this brings me to the inquiry, which is, wow, the work continues. And I know that this was already addressed in Rosie's question, but I have an obsession. The work needs to continue with negative thinking. It's an area where I struggle a lot. There are times when it doesn't hit me, but there have been times when I've literally been in a sound check in a beautiful theater in, Estonia. 3,000 people are about to sing along, and I'm thinking, this chair could, negative thinking. And that is a small little blip of it, but what I'm speaking about more of when it arises, not so much on purpose, like I'm turning it on, but more of this all consuming, it bubbles up. And when it comes up for me, it's as if nothing else in the world exists. It's a bit embarrassing to, in a way, to say this, and maybe that's reflective of where I'm at with my journey. I still feel a little bit of embarrassment, a little bit of perhaps shame around it, but it's like I know that I'm poisoning myself, but it just happens. It's these samskaras that I'm continuing to work out, these patterns, and it's okay. I know that I'm not going to go back to the way I used to live. I'm going forward, and that means I need to walk through this fire, and it really feels like fire. When it passes, it's like, wow, that was a whole bunch of craziness that I didn't need to give a lot of energy to. So I truly appreciate, all the wisdom that you offer us, this community, and love to hear your reflections about this negative thinking.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I'll speak to you as a musician. You being the musician, me being a lover of music. So I am enamored and have been enamored by a number of musicians that have been sort of known to be particularly hard on their bands. So one of those musicians is Miles Davis. Like, if you played the wrong note or wrong chord, if you messed up, like, he would let you know it. When I'm caught in negative thinking, well, here, another guy, Van Morrison. Van Morrison, notorious for, firing his band, firing people on stage in concerts. Get off stage, because he didn't like the way they struck a note or a chord, There's others along the way. When I'm caught in negative thinking, it's like I'm playing this gorgeous symphony and I just hit a shitty note. And that's how I look at negative thinking. Like I'm just hitting a really bad note. This is the wrong note in the wrong key at the wrong time. And it is just crapping on the symphony, ruining the symphony. The symphony is more than willing to show up as the beautiful symphony, but there's a note that's showing up within this symphony that is just crushing it in the wrong way. And so from that perspective, you would think, oh, I heard the note. I'm going to change back to the right key and the right note and the right tempo and meter, and it's going to be the right symphony again. But instead, boop, up it comes again. Up it comes again. Same note, same wrong place for that note. Up again, up again, up again. And this becomes, of course, incredibly frustrating because you know how beautiful the symphony is. And you seem not to be able to let it be. And that thought, up again, up again, up again. So, first of all, that's how I'm looking at what negative thinking does to the symphony of this life. Like, this is an incredible life, and we're blessed. And the negative thinking is just getting in the way of what actually is. Now, it's a habit. You use the term samskara. I really think that's the correct term. I'll use another term, vasana. A vasana is a even deeper samskara. Vasana is the closest word I know of in Sanskrit to describe addiction. I refer to negative thinking as an addiction. It has the frequency of addiction. It has all the trappings of keeping you stuck in a certain level. And so for me, it really fits my definition of any behavior you do, even though it brings a negative consequence into your life. So these are some explorations of what negative thinking is and a way to look at it as an addictive thing unto itself. Samskara also is just training. Samskara is like training. I'm trained into this. And at 1 year sober, you give yourself credit for making it to a year sober, and you temper that with understanding that you've been in 30 years of relatively unconscious practice of something else. Allowing the note to come, maybe not even noticing it. Allowing the note to come, not even noticing it. The symphony of life, not playing up to its fullest potential, but you not even noticing it. And then you noticed it. You were made to notice it. You said, I feel like God kicked me out. Yes. You got kicked out because the symphony that the Spirit wanted to hear through you was displeasing to the ears that were hearing it. And it became unacceptable, intolerable. Now you've had a year of awakening and practicing, really listening to the instruments in the symphony and becoming more and more aware that every now and then this note shows up. And so what you have in the first year developed, which is the victory to be celebrated here, and I mean it, is awareness. You didn't even know the shitty note was there. Now you know. Now you know. And it's great news, man. You just have to give yourself time and practice. You've had a year of developing awareness and beginning to practice out of that note of negativity, that note of self-doubt, or that note of condemnation or judgment of another, or whatever that note is. Well, now, not only do you recognize it, but you also recognize, I don't like that. That is messing with the symphony. So it's an incredible thing to realize. Like, if you don't have the awareness, obviously there's nothing you can do. Interestingly, this is a big problem with people who smoke cannabis chronically, is they're not, usually their life is not going to completely implode Although with the levels of THC that people are taking in, we now for the first time sort of see people's lives imploding in chronic cannabis use in some ways. But normally the cannabis addict, or the person who's chronically using cannabis, they can sort of skate by in life. But they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what they're missing. They don't know what's on the other side of that cannabis use. If they could let go of cannabis, they have no conception of what would be there, of what awareness would present itself that's being on a daily basis shut down. People sometimes say to me, Tommy, you're 33 years sober. Can't you smoke a joint? Because I used to smoke cannabis and love cannabis, and I had a big relationship with cannabis. And I'm like, no, it's not a question of whether I can smoke a joint or not. It's a question of why would I possibly do that? For what reason would I veil my awareness? Why would I send myself back into the closet, back into the dark, back into a quasi or semi-conscious state? Why would I do that? That would be so counterproductive and so painful for who I am and the things that I desire, which is to be more and more aware and more awake, more and more skillful in this world. That would be a monster step backwards for me. So it's interesting that this thing about awakening and coming to a greater level of awareness of like the note that's off in the symphony of life, it's not possible while you're smoking cannabis in the way that you were, in the way that many other people are. That's my opinion. And it's not just my opinion, it's what I've seen in most people, and I can reflect on my own experience there too. So on the one hand, I'm saying, congratulations on a greater awareness. Congratulations on moving towards the unbelievable symphony of this life for you. And give yourself a minute. It's an unbelievable accomplishment to make it to a year. There's no but. It's an unbelievable accomplishment. And what is the benefit of that? You get to experience what it is to have made it to a year. The level of clarity you have, the health that you have, your lungs have probably detoxed quite a bit. There's greater health in the physical body also. You're learning you're developing the capacity to calm your mind without that. And you're now, through this inquiry, you're working on refining the symphony. Previously you were a musician or a composer. You didn't have control over a lot of the instruments and a lot of the musicians. Now you're moving into having that ability to influence and to create in a more skillful and powerful way, so that note ultimately, eventually, is not going to arise so much. Eventually, it won't arise anymore. And until that happens, when it does arise, you'll know immediately what to do about it, and you'll be able to shift it. So one of the great yogic techniques for shifting negativity, and this is in the ancient scriptures, is very, very powerful. I'm going to give you the Sanskrit term, but nobody needs to know this. It's just called pratipaksha bhavana. Pratipaksha bhavana. And that simply means, and when I experience a negative thought, I immediately reverse the thought in my mind in real time. I don't like what that person's doing. It's okay. It's okay what that person's doing. It's none of my business. I don't like the color of that chair. I love the color of that chair. Wonderful. Great. What we're trying to do here is not to be a Pollyanna and not to be absurd, but we're trying to retrain the brain into a positive spin. We're so skewed to the negative. The human being wakes up today in 2024 on the wrong side of the bed. Very rare is the person that wakes up and is like, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what this day is going to bring. Very rare is that person today. Oh, I'm so excited at today's possibilities. which is why when we go on retreat with people, we ask them also to enter a practice of, before you put your feet on the ground, say, I'm so grateful to wake up today. What's possible? Let's find out. Before you put your feet on the ground, just train the brain. Train it. So this practice of reversing negativity in the moment is really, really powerful. And it will start to get you moving in the right direction mentally. The brain records what the thinking is. If the thinking is negative, 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 that's what's going in. So we start to change. What's possible here? What could happen here? I'd like to find out what this symphony could be. I'd like to find out if I have just if I have fewer discordant notes, what will happen? And so that's a practice that you can engage in right away. Also, the awareness continues into your second year of recovery, continuous sobriety, your second year of abstinence. It won't be like the first year. You will not think the same way you think now when you get to year 2, should you be blessed with that and choose that path for yourself. When you come to year 3, you will not be thinking the way you were in year 2. This is an evolutionary process. And the negativity and the self-doubt and the procrastination and the resentment, those are the 4 aggravations. Those things change shape. They have a different quality to them. I have a different relationship with them. It's not that I never have a negative thought. It's not that I don't procrastinate. It's not that I don't have temporary, very minor resentments that come up in my life. It's that I'm in the practice of moving through them and returning myself to presence. That's the benefit of staying in the practice of recovery. Remember, the practice of recovery has a cornerstone foundational element, which is abstinence. But the practice of recovery is another thing altogether. The practice of recovery is awakening into greater and greater skills so the symphony of life can be all that it can be. Lastly, I'm a great appreciator of improvisation. I really, really admire the courage it takes to improvise from a stage. I grew up with, the Grateful Dead. I grew up with a lot of jazz. I grew up with some of the great improvisers who were willing to step on stage and didn't know where it was going to go. And sometimes improvisers, and they'd be the first to tell you, we mess up a lot because we're courageous enough to step into the unknown. I highly encourage you and everybody to be an improviser in this journey of recovery. Step into the unknown and start to get used to the discomfort of it so that eventually that discomfort becomes comfort. And what I mean by that improvisation in life is mix things up. Be willing to do things you haven't done before. This is all in the name of recovery, growth, learning, intelligence, wisdom. Move towards love in all of its forms. Move towards wisdom. Step into the unknown as a musician of life, a creator of life. And you're going to mess up. And that's okay. Keep playing. Don't leave recovery because you felt stuck in a negativity for a day, even after we had this talk. In fact, especially because we've had this talk, you're only going to become more aware of this now. It'll be on your mind. And so can you walk through that and say, all right, well, let's practice this reversal thing. that Tommy spoke about. Let's practice some breath. Let me calm down. Where's the negativity coming from? Is this serving the symphony? How can I return to the symphony? How can I step out into something special, something unknown, something I haven't done before, and keep going down this improvisational track? Recovery is evolutionary, or it isn't recovery. Recovery is improvisational, I would say, or it's not recovery. If you're not in the present moment, then you're not in recovery. If you're not working at being in the present moment, then you're not in recovery. And what is the present moment? Unknown. This is the problem with the present moment. You don't know what's going to happen if you're really present. It's like I'm willing to step out of the known or the attempt to do something that is a memory. I'm no longer recreating from the past, but I'm improvising right here and now from the present moment, co-creating this life, co-creating this symphony. And so I'm a big, big fan of understanding that improvisation is a piece of it and that you're going to make mistakes. And they're to be learned from. We don't hide from them. We don't pretend they didn't happen, even the big ones. We learn everything we can. We heal it, clean it up if we need to, and then we move on. Lastly, this relationship you have with your sponsor, who I admire very much. As you know, he has a great meditative practice. This gives you an edge. You are fortunate. And I cannot express to you how much I mean that. You are so fortunate that in your decision process and whatever the symphony that you're creating is, you somehow ended up with this person who can really instill in you the value of a meditative practice. You have an edge. And now all you have to do is develop steadiness, consistency with that edge. And you will find your negativity dropping away. And you will find your effectiveness and your ability to deal with it when it arises much better, getting much, much better. And so there's a humility and an acceptance and a checking of what your expectations ought to be at 1 year sober. This is incredible. You're in the pole position for the best symphony ever. The symphony only you can create. You're in the pole position to create it now. How fantastic. It's just the greatest thing. So I'm so excited for the music you make, literally and figuratively. And yeah, I hope that's helpful to you in some way. And I'd love to hear your reflections as we go down this road together.
Wow. Thank you, Tommy. Very helpful indeed. Yes, life is an improvisation. And it's I love that you brought that up because that's been such a central focus of my life and my life as a player. I'm most comfortable getting into a performance, whether it's just me to a tree or me with others in front of people, where there's not even a tune, just completely free. My teacher, David Darling, was a big, amazing teacher in how he built a bridge between music, improvisation, and a spiritual path, and how one can complement one another. So thank you for that great reminder.
Yes.
Definitely do that. And thank you for, I will begin a daily practice of Pratipaksha Bhavana.
Yes.
I've heard that expressed as gladdening the mind, or yoniso manasikara in some Buddhist traditions. So yeah, that is that is something that I will continue to practice, and I'll take lots of gems from this conversation. And I appreciate your support. I really feel that you and everyone in this community truly, just from the deepest part of you, like really wants us to get this. So thank you.
Yes.
I've been skating through life really unaware of just how bad things were, because it was difficult to tell the truth about the situation.
Mm.
So I'm really grateful that that I've gotten kicked out, that I played that wrong note one time too many. Even though there are no wrong notes, you just move a half stone, a top up. Anyway, blah blah blah. But yeah, so I'm grateful to be here and for the deepening journey of what's going to happen next.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Stu, for this inquiry, and yeah, I relate to so much of it personally because I have such a huge history with cannabis and music, and so hopefully we can all connect at some point down the road somewhere, and maybe even get to benefit from your chops as a musician in this life. So, yeah, beautiful. All right, man. Thank you so much.